What's going on, Port fans? Welcome back to another video on my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the rumours of Sam Powell-Pepper and his apparent interest from West Coast and a potential move this trade period. I'm going to get straight into this one because it is a hot topic for today. I did have another video planned about the best recruits of 2021. That may come later in the week now that this news is fresh off the press, including some other rumours about Powell-Pepper, Peter Ladhams. So much happening in the trade period for the first day of what's been a pretty hectic first few days of the free agency period that's happening at the moment, and then the trade period starts today, and all these rumours and everything are coming to life so early on, and we know how silly the season can get. So let's get straight into this one and talk about how Sam Powell-Pepper could be on the move this trade period. So the report came out earlier today about Sam Powell-Pepper and his potential move to West Coast, thanks to Tom Morris, who's reporting that West Coast have interest in the young gun because Port Adelaide are not willing to play Sam Powell-Pepper in the midfield as much as he would like. Now, he's requested a lot more time in the midfield, and as we know, he's a very talented inside midfielder. He can be a ball in the contest, and as we know, he's a very talented kid with so much promise and hype. I'm going to talk a little bit about the situation at hand at the moment because a lot of people, including fans, and I put this out on my Twitter about how he's played 92 games, and barring his first season at the club in 2017, he hasn't lived up to the expectations that have been placed on him by both the club, the media and the fans. So we've expected a little bit more than what we've gotten. He's done it in small bursts, and we know how talented he is, and we know he's had a rough trot over the last few years with off-field sagas and injuries and multiple other scenarios that have come his way and interrupted his consistency in football. And obviously the help from Travis Boak, his mentor, has been great, and we've loved seeing how Sam has progressed as a person. He's definitely been a very, very good leader in the Aboriginal cultural aspect, and bringing a lot of awareness and being a great role model for some in that area, but obviously in other areas off-field haven't been as well. But that is not going to impact the situation that is at hand. He's obviously got interest from West Coast. We know how talented he is. And I will state this straight away before I get into the pros and cons of this report. I am pro keeping him, so I want him to stay at Port Adelaide. I feel like he adds another dimension, and as we know, we've lacked aggression, we've lacked a tone setter as such when it comes to that first contest or that first tackle. And his year last year was sensational. He changed his role to that half forward. Pressure up forward player, and he played it in small parts this year. He came on and played a great role in the qualifying final against Geelong, Indigenous round against Fremantle, kicked 3 goals, was fantastic that day. He's had a few other impacts during games during the season, but overall his impact has been few and far between, and I can see an option there to trade him. He's definitely in that 25 group where he's on the verge of being selected, whether he's an emergency, the sub, or playing in the 22. He's definitely in there. Whether or not there is a player that comes and develops, we've seen Willem Drew being a certain starter in the middle with Boak and Wines and Lysette as that centre bounce crew to start the games. Sam Powell-Pepper's influence at that contest definitely could be handy in those situations. We know he's on the verge of being able to have a breakout season, and I do strongly believe that if he has a full pre-season, no interruptions, no injuries, nothing that happens away from football, and he puts his head down and can focus, he'll have a breakout season next year, and I really feel like he can be a massive asset in that midfield. Putting Wines down forward, he's been down there a couple of times when he's resting from playing that predominantly the midfield role. If he, instead of going to the bench, maybe Ollie Wines can play in that forward pocket and be a brutal force down there when resting outside of the midfield, then Powell-Pepper can go into that middle and play a similar role. I think he just needs to improve the fitness base that he has, maybe shred a few to be a bit leaner and be able to expose that pace and still use that aggressive nature that he has in the contest. We know he's a ferocious tackler, but I think it's just about getting consistency in his game, and whether or not he needs that at another club is probably up to himself. And if it's funny how these players, they come forward at this trade period. You don't hear from them all year, and they come forward and they say, "Oh, I want more midfield time." Or in Peter Ladhams' situation, "I want to be number 1 ruck." When in Pete Ladhams' situation, we'll never properly see him as a number one ruckman. I think he's a very good forward player, and I think his craft down there is very good. He is a very good ruckman, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like having Lysette, and you're going to have Sam Hayes, who's a BNF winner in the Magpies now. He's going to overtake Lysette eventually, and I'd never see Pete Ladhams in that situation, so whether or not he does go somewhere else. And the clubs they're looking at, though, it's very odd. St Kilda are looking at Pete Ladhams. Yeah, they've got Paddy Ryder, Rowan Marshall. Then you look at Sydney, they've got Tom Hickey, who's been a fantastic ruckman. In these clubs that he's looking at, there's not been a situation where he could be the predominant number one ruckman, unless there's an injury. So, same with Sam Powell-Pepper. If you wanted more midfield time, that's fine. I'd definitely look at giving him more midfield time. Give him a target in this pre-season and see if he can meet those expectations. He's been very serviceable as that high forward, pressure forward player. He's kicked goals. He knows where the scoreboard is. He hasn't been able to kick accurately, but he's been able to hit those targets. And if he's playing midfield, he's got to build that base. He's got to make sure that he's in prime nick to be doing that. One other thing as well, and I've had a few conversations with people on Twitter, and they're good discussion points, and definitely there's arguments on both sides. A lot of people are blaming coaches for this, and I don't blame coaches for Powell-Pepper's demeanour in how he approaches his football. That's purely a footballer-based decision, and sure, he should be given more opportunities as such, but he's had 92 games. He's played predominantly of them half forward. He's had his injury problems. He's had form issues. He's had off-field issues. There's never been a set, consistent base that he's had. And I'm happy to give him the opportunity, and I'm happy to see what he can do with that. But, when you've got Wines, Boak and Drew as your starting midfield, he doesn't start ahead of them. Or you put Robbie Gray in there ahead of him. It's these situations that do provide an opportunity for players to look everywhere else, but I don't think he's going to get more midfield time heading to the West Coast Eagles. Better off trying to get midfield time at Port Adelaide, because there is an opportunity there. You can break ahead of, Drew. You can go ahead of, say, if Boak drops off. There is a rotation aspect there, and if you do stand out and you do play good football, then you're going to be looked at first. So it's an opportunity. That's all this is. This is not anything against Sam Powell-Pepper. This is a purely discussion point, because I love Peps. I think he's a great player. I think he's got so much talent, and I really hope we do keep him, because I'd love to see him develop into that player. You start to hit 100 games, and you start to hit your form, you hit your peak. He's getting to that age. Would hate to lose him, and then he goes to West Coast and actually does find that form that he's looking at and that midfield time. It's a risk, I think, this one. I'm happy to let Ladhams go than Powell-Pepper. That's what I'm trying to say, and I think if you can get a good pre-season, as I said, find that consistency, get that rhythm going, as players do, and Ollie Wines is a perfect example of that. He had a full pre-season, found his niche, found exactly what he knows he's good at, and look at him, he's a Brownlow medalist. And Powell-Pepper can be developing into that same direction. But let me know in the comments below what you're thinking of this one, Port fans. It's an interesting trade that we could pull off, and that could open up a lot of doors in terms of picks and opportunities to move up in the draft. It is a shallow draft, so you look at both sides of this one, but I'm on the left-hand side, which is keeping Powell-Pepper and hoping to see him develop into a great player that I know he could be. Thanks so much for watching, Port fans. This little discussion piece that's got going on ahead of the trade period. Probably be a few more of these as we go through the trade period and see what Port Adelaide can develop. I look forward to seeing what others we look at and the players that we can potentially bring into the club as well. But all up for grabs on day one, a massive day already. So let me know in the comments below what you think. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new for plenty more Port Adelaide and AFL content. My name is Anthony, and as always, can't pair.